Welcome back to Jet Recaps. Today I will show you a historical romance movie from 1995, titled A Walk in the Clouds. The first scene reveals a group of soldiers debarking from a ship. They are just coming back home after 4 years from World War II. Among the soldiers is a young man, Sergeant Paul Sutton. As he comes down, he chats happily with a fellow soldier. They look forward to meeting their wives and families respectively. Paul had been enlisted to fight just a day after his impulsive wedding. So he doesn't really know his wife, Betty. Surprisingly, his wife does not show up to meet him at the dock. Downcast, he goes home alone. On reaching his apartment, he finds Betty home. But she is more concerned with her self-development courses than his war experiences. Paul is dismayed when he learns that she hadn't been reading his letters. Hence the reason why she hadn't been on the dock to welcome him. Or she would have been aware of his arrival through the letters. Self-absorbed, Betty tries to hook him up with his old job, selling chocolates. But Paul wishes to make a better career out of his life. And when he makes an attempt to talk to her about his feelings, irritated, Betty cuts him short by initiating sex. The next morning, now aware Betty isn't what he had imagined, he packs his bag and then leaves for the station. He intends to go to Sacramento in search for a suitable job. On the train, he meets a woman struggling with her suitcase. Physically attracted to her, he offers to help her with her suitcase. They stare at each other intensely as he helps her. But a jolt from the train breaks the connection. Unbalanced, Paul falls on her awkwardly. As he helps her up, feeling nauseous, she throws up on him. After cleaning the mess in the restroom, Paul returns only to find her sleeping. And Paul also settled down to sleep. But his sleep was filled with disturbing nightmares from the war. And by the time he wakes up, she was already gone. But when he catches up a bus heading to Sacramento, he meets her again. And she apologizes for the incident earlier. A stop later, 2 men who boards the bus started harassing her. Paul intervenes and beats them up. However, this results in him being kicked off the bus with the 2 men. As he walks alone down the road, he meets her again. But this time, he finds her crying. She introduces herself as Victoria Aragon. She comes from a large family who owns a vineyard in Napa. And she is currently on her way home. When Paul insists on knowing why she is unhappy going home, she reveals she is pregnant for her professor. But the professor has no interest in doing right by her. And her father, being so old-fashioned, is sure to kill her if he learns she has brought disgrace to the family name. Paul feels very sorry for her and reluctant to leave her alone. So he offers to pose as her husband to her traditionalist family. And when everything is settled, he will quietly slip away the next day, leaving her family to believe he has abandoned her. Before reaching the Aragon estate, Paul offers her a ring. This is to make their fake marriage look convincing to her family. A gunshot sound few minutes later makes them duck for cover. But they find out the gunshot had come from Alberto, Victoria's father. When Victoria introduces Paul to Alberto as her husband, Alberto goes mad. He is infuriated that she had gotten married without his permission. Not only that, she had stooped low to marry a man below their status. Because Paul, who had carried his box of chocolates with him, had introduced himself as a chocolate seller. Fuming, Alberto swore to call off the marriage. However, when the rest of the family meets Paul, they warm up to him. And even Victoria's grandfather, Pedro, eats one of Paul's chocolate. When Pedro offers Alberto a chocolate, though tempted, Alberto storms off with his shotgun. It gets worse at dinner when Paul informs them he is an orphan and had been raised in an orphanage home. Alberto, being rude and insensitive, says Paul has no past and a future, insinuating Paul can't be accepted into their reputable family. This makes Paul excuse himself from the table with Victoria in tow. Outside, Paul tells Victoria about his childhood wish to always have a family. But Victoria insists her father is just too overbearing. Believing they are really married, Victoria's mother sets up a honeymoon room for them. Feeling so embarrassed, Victoria insists they sleep in Pedro's room. But her mother won't hear of it. So Paul sets up a blanket on the floor while Victoria takes the bed. But when Alberto comes to wish them good night, Paul joins her on the bed. And they decide it's safe to sleep on the bed together, to avoid suspicions from Alberto. That night, Paul had another nightmare of the war. But this time, he screams Victoria's name from his dreams, as he is beginning to have feelings for her. Victoria comforts him, but when the emergency bell goes off, the moment is disrupted. They discovered that the vineyard has been covered by frost, and they were at the verge of losing the grapes if not saved quickly. With the guidance of Victoria, Paul helps in saving the vineyard that night. And at dawn, he attempts to leave before the family wakes up. But he meets Pedro outside, who urges him to take a walk with him. As they walk through the vineyard, Pedro tells Paul about the vineyard's history, which had been started by their ancestors with just one root. Pedro then convinces Paul to stay for the vineyard's harvest, which he later agrees to after much persuasion. Victoria gets excited when she hears he is staying, as she had fallen in love with him. Later that day, her brother also returns from school to join the harvest. During the harvest, Paul grows closer to the family, and he even earns a drink from Alberto surprisingly. Paul and Victoria's feelings for each other begins to get intense. And after a dance while crushing grapes, they get carried away. This led to them sharing an intense kiss, which Paul later apologizes for, as he is still committed to his wife. Meanwhile, Alberto begins to suspect their marriage. He believes they are hiding something, and he insists Victoria tells him the truth. Having no courage to, Victoria walks away instead. Meanwhile, Paul is now torn between staying and going back to his wife. As he finally decides to leave, he sees Victoria in pains, and he quickly goes over to help her. Angry that he will never stay with her, Victoria asks him to leave. He tries to talk to her, but she runs away from him. Despite Pedro's help, Victoria still refuses to talk to him. Left with no other option, Paul leaves the Aragons' estate that night. But the next morning, he attends the harvest festival as he awaits his bus. He watches from afar as Victoria and her family arrives at the festival. When he is about leaving the festival, Victoria sees him, and she goes over to thank and bid him goodbye. Alberto, who now has a change of heart about Paul, sees them together, still not in support with the marriage done without his permission. He decides they take their wedding vows again later that night, and when he throws an open invite to everyone at the festival, Victoria summons courage to tell her family the truth, further infuriating her father, while Paul hitches a ride home in an attempt to salvage his marriage. But on reaching home, he finds Betty with another man, and she gives him an annulment which he happily accepts. Free from his union with Betty, he quickly returned to the Aragons' estate to ask for Victoria's hand in marriage. On reaching there, he meets a drunk and angry Alberto. Paul tries to apologize and explain to Alberto, but Alberto, blinded with rage, attempts to kill him instead. He flings a lamp at Paul, which lands on the vineyard, and this results into a disastrous fire which burns the vineyard to the ground. However, Paul remembers one plant that may still have its root intact. He races off to retrieve it and then gives it to Alberto. Alberto, who now realizes his error, welcomes Paul into the family, and he gives Paul a root binding him to the land and his new family. The movie comes to an end as Paul gives Victoria a ring, and with a playful nudge from Pedro, he kisses her, sealing the union in front of the family. If you enjoyed this recap, kindly like and subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon. Do let us know what you think about the movie in the comments section below. Enjoy other movie explanations on our channel. Thanks for watching.